there is something about, that your network sometimes do crazy things. And this conversation today is an example of that. We've been together for about half an hour. We should have recorded all that because that was great. So thank you to Sarah Clark for introducing us. And Paula, welcome to the Hospitality Maverick podcast show.
Thank you very much for having me. I'm so excited about this.
Me too, because actually it's funny how things happens in the universe, because I was actually going a bit back to my root. I was actually reading a book with Danny Meyer, Setting the Table. I was starting thinking about that way you make people feel very unique in your presence or in your restaurants and hospitality. I was starting to ask myself, are we actually losing that after the pandemic? Because one thing was survival, and then we needed to go into a new era of hospitality. And then I started asking people, do you think we are losing the craft for hospitality? And, I put a post out on LinkedIn yesterday, and it was quite crazy how many people actually agrees with that. And you agreed quite quickly as well.
I completely agree.
On the spiral. So that's the vision for today. We're going to talk about what hospitality is, what the power of hospitality is. And of course, we're going to hear your amazing journey of, obstacles and wind in the back as well. But what you learned from that and where you are now in hospitality and the job you're doing. So please let us know a bit about who is Paulo. How do you end up in hospitality, and what are you doing today, and how are you connected with the industry?
Oh, perfect. Yeah. So, born and raised in Brazil. Mm-hmm. I was pretty much brought up with a lot of food, an environment where quality was really important for my mom. And we cooked and we ate together all the time. And a friend of our family, Francisco Silva, was an architect who was planning to open a restaurant in New York City. And joking around, I just asked if I could come along, and he said yes. My family didn't really think much of it. I said, "Oh, go get a visa, and then we'll prepare for that," thinking that I wouldn't get one perhaps. But I got my visa, which it happened. I got my B1 for business in a student visa, and we went to New York City. It was extremely exciting. My English was pretty broken, but Francisco had a partner who was half Brazilian, half American, and we want to open a coffee shop. We found a location in Brooklyn, and then the process of opening this coffee shop was really intriguing for me, because I was learning so much how to find the location, how to build the sites, how to welcome customers, how to create a journey, and that experience was really incredible. It didn't last really long, because after 18 months, Francisco decided to go back to Brazil, and I decided to stay. And then I wasn't quite sure if my family would let me stay in New York City at that age, but they did. And I went on I didn't have much of a CV whatsoever. I didn't have any experience really, and so I found a job working as a dishwasher at a Japanese sushi restaurant in Soho, and it was really difficult. It was 12 hours a day, and I should get yelled at all day long, and it was really tough until one day when I was taking out the rubbish. I was taking out the trash, and I cut both my legs. Next morning, coming to work, they fired me. So for me, it was shocked. I was completely shocked. I wasn't quite sure what to do. And I remember calling my grandfather, and he told me, no, there's nothing here in Brazil for you. Stay there, and I'm sure you can find something else. So I got the newspaper, and Columbus Avenue at that time was the place to be. So I went to every single location. I knew that I had to go before service or in the mid-afternoon. That's what someone had told me. And then I went to 17 locations, and I got a trial at a restaurant on Columbus Avenue. And then I became a busboy, a commie, and then I realized how front of the house was ready for me, but I fell in love. I fell in love with the preparation to open a service. I fell in love when the place is really busy. My job at the time was not, I had to bring bread and butter to the table, refill coffees and teas. But what I understood is that if I was a really good commie and I can support my waiter, I can make a lot of money. And I remember the end of that day, I was given $150, and it was more than I made in the entire month washing dishes 12 hours a day. So from then I went to I started growing from a commis head waiter to a manager, and I did all various different positions until I moved to London in 2005.
Can you, if we just stay there a little bit, because it's very interesting. It sounds like it went quite easy, but from what I can hear from you when you tell the story off the mic, it's like it was quite a challenging, period where you ended your journey 18 months with the coffee shop, then you had to go and find a job, then you had that experience. What did you find that period challenging, or what was your deep learning? Because there's always it seems like there was some learnings there.
It was a lot of learning, because here I am, at the age where I should be with my family in Brazil.
Yeah.
Everything's provided. You go to school. I'm the youngest out of 6 with a single mother, but I had a stepfather at the time, and we lived pretty well. And now I'm here in 18 months with a friend in learning, and he's a lot older, and I'm learning how to do all these things, and everything's going well until the shock of him going back to Brazil. And then, do I go back or do I stay? I have this incredible opportunity where I can, I'm the land of the free United States. I can do something really well here. So it was a shock to the system where, I had to call my grandfather, and he told me, there's nothing in Brazil for you, stay there. And then I knew I had enough money to stay maybe 2 months. And so I had to find a job quickly. And then finding that job and the work was really hard, but I was learning, but it was really difficult. But looking back, you really learn when you're challenged. You really learn I was really growing as I was no longer a 16-year-old boy. I was becoming a man, because as my grandfather always told me, the best universities, the hard knocks,
knocks of life.
You know what I mean? You're learning how to really survive and have to learn how to, provide for yourself. So it was really difficult. Oh yeah, no questions about it.
And then you landed in London.
Yeah.
And that was a new stepping stone for already a very exciting career you've done in New York, but a new stepping stone. Talk a bit about your years in London. And
so coming to London, it was incredible. And my wife and I came. We didn't really plan to stay that long, but I knew. Our friends told us, Paulo, since you're in the hospitality industry, I think you should go and visit this companies. And they mentioned Chris Corbin and Jeremy King. They mentioned Richard Caring at the time just bought the group, Jay Sheiky's, and he was opening Scott's. So I remember going to the Caprice Holdings at the time, and they found me a job. Working, I had to work. I had to start from they wouldn't hire anybody as a management position, so I worked as a head waiter at Daphne's for 6 months until I met Chris Corbin, Jeremy King, and when I met them, I was offered the position of a maitre d', which I never did before, But it was very different than management, the greeting guests and so forth. But I loved it. So I built that career. I worked for Corbin and King for 3 years, and from there, I really loved their approach to hospitality. How important they emphasize on front of the house, and how the technical ability, and that's what I learned. Is the difference between America and Europe. In America, the personality is really important. Most of the time, you get hired on the personality, and here in Europe is your technical skill. So I figure at that time, if I combine the two, to have the wonderful, warm personality and being technical and professional at the same time, that's something really special here.
Yeah.
So from the Wolseley, I learned a lot from those guys, and then I went on to work for Richard Caring at Scott's, and then the breakthrough for me really came when I opened Bar Boulud for at the time 3 Michelin star chef Daniel Boulud, where I spent 6 years, and there I was really able to use all the tools that I've learned my entire career, and to build the team there and create something really special, which Barbaloo was.
Yeah. And then you went and opened your own space as well.
So I opened Margot. The project started in 2015. We opened 2016 with a lot of delays. And that was an incredible experience, because you go from, all your life, you're working for someone, you're working for a company, you're working for structures that have a lot of money in order to provide all that. And Margot was completely different. It was me and a partner who had to do everything from payroll to HR to hiring to do even our social media. We had to pretty much do everything. And then also you have to, the leadership that you have, you have to take those two hats and you have to provide that leadership to entire team, which we had 72 at the start. But it was a lot of work, and we did really well, and we were really supported by the industry, because we're guys that work in the industry, and we're opening a restaurant. And Margot was a big success, big success for every chef in the world came to visit us. And in 2020, when COVID hit, I stepped away.
And you're still involved in the restaurant?
I'm no longer involved with Margot.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
And what do you do then today? How do you take all that wisdom and experience and package together today? Because one of the first things I checked out when Sarah nods, you should meet Paulo. You have a great conversation, which he's absolutely right about. I saw you had this TED Talk.
Yes, that's
around hospitality. We're going to dive into that in a second. But what are you spending your time on?
So right after COVID, I'm very creative, and people organically start asking me, Paulo, listen, I'm opening a restaurant. Can you do some consulting for me? Can you help me with this? And then hotels start asking me for me to do that. And then at the time also, I consulted for Hackett, the retail store, and Seven for Mankind. It's a company from Los Angeles that does jeans. And then companies start asking me to do a keynote speech or to train their teams. So what I spend my time now is consulting for big groups, how to bring hospitality into the luxury market, how to bring hospitality to the retail market, how to bring hospitality to the car industry, any industry. So that's what I've been traveling the world and just working with big companies.
Can you talk a bit about, what you typically do when you go in to work with them and how typical it starts out?
Of course, yes. Like for Norton Motorcycle, for example, they asked me to do a keynote speech about how to bring luxury hospitality into the luxury market. For example, they have they're launching four three new motorcycles. How they can change their retail perception, when you go into a retail dealership. So then I created, after I did a keynote speech, I created this program of how to build the culture in Norton Motorcycle into bring the hospitality aspect of it, how to engage, how to communicate, how to teach your team to everybody should know about the brand, everybody should know about the motorcycle. And then I created classes to how to engage with the customer and how to face the customer. How can I engage with the customer? How can I tell the customer about my product? And how can I enhance my product and take that to the public?
And what then, if we go back again to the original part of the conversation, we wanted to define what great hospitality is. On that journey you've been on, an incredible journey.
Yeah.
How would you then define hospitality in your world today, especially when you work with companies? Because in my view, it's a universal act.
That's it. It's hard, what people don't understand, and I always try to get this point across. It's what's the difference between service and hospitality. Service is how you get a product from A to B. Hospitality is how you you make the recipient of the product feel. So for me, hospitality is about how am I engaging with my clients? How am I building my team? How do I make my team feels? All those years you learn, and I learned this from Danny Meyer, that the customer comes first. No, it doesn't. If you're opening a restaurant, if you open a pub, if you're opening a retail store, how you build your team, how you train your team, how important it is to have the product knowledge, how important it is to read a situation, how often anticipating the client's needs. How warm you have to be. So I think a lot of people, having the product knowledge and have all this information, but the engagement with the client is the most important thing. How often you go to restaurants, people don't even know how to look at yourself in the eyes. Yeah. People don't know how to communicate with you. People don't know what is the right time in order to go into that table and talk to people. So I think a lot of that is missing in the world today.
So you actually think, as we started out the conversation, we are losing that act of making people feel something besides giving them the transaction, the product, the basic service?
I think you just said everything perfect. I think we are. There's a great quote. That it's. People will forget what you said. People forget what you did, but they will never forget how you made them feel. So I've made my career in order to, building a clientele that is loyal to you. How are you going to build a loyal clientele? Because everybody's able to do great things when everything is going well. But what happens when things go wrong in any environment, work environment, whether it's a hotel, restaurants? How do you engage with that guest? How do you pick up from that mistake that you've made and lift your hands up and say, you know what, we made a mistake here. Let me take care of that. I think hospitality, I go to, as you do, go out to restaurants often. It's so much missing out there. The way you get greeted, the way you are taken to a table, the way people hand you the menu, the way for me, a good restaurant is about creating an atmosphere inside that makes you feel welcome, that makes you feel good. Yeah. The way the way the staff engages with you. Then a food this day in London. I mean, food this day in London is a giving. Every restaurant should have good food, should have a good cocktail program, should have a good wine program. But how people forget how to train your staff. How important it is to train staff. How important it is to have classes that your staff is trained all the time. And I think also, and then in London, let's be honest, we've had Brexit. Let's talk about Great Britain. We had Brexit that really didn't help us whatsoever, making Europeans not feel welcome here. Then we have COVID that, in our lives has been the most difficult things that we had to cope with. We have mental health. Then we have wars that's happening. And, we have, and then we have everything is rents in London is so expensive. So if you look at the independent restaurateur, he has to have, business rates is something that's happening again and is going to completely shatter the business. But, so I know that, independent restaurants and business have all this difficulty to have to go through. But one thing you cannot take it away from is quality. The quality of your product, the quality of your training, the quality of everything. And I think when you're hit with all those challenges, the main thing that you need to focus on, it's on your team.
Coming back to, we talked about, are we losing the act of hospitality? Do you think there's somebody because there's always somebody out there, the mavericks, who do you think is doing a great job of keeping that alive when you're walking around? It doesn't need to be a hospitality business. It could be any kind of businesses you observe, because I guess you go in with that radar on when you go into a physical place. You see, it's a beautiful space, but how is the energy here?
Yeah, no, I think Danny Meyer does an incredible job. I think Daniel Boulud does incredible job. I know companies in London like Michel Roux, and there's a lot of, Jeremy King is opening his restaurants now. He does an incredible job. I just think that a company that I love, it's Apple. Products that they come up with, but how is your customer service? How when my motorcycle breaks down and I call you and I need it, what's the warranty? How do you make me feel when I go to your store that my product is broken? So customer service. Nike, I found a place that I bought. All three boys play a lot of football. I just had to return one of the boots that he used for a year, but they returned and they gave us the entire money back because they saw that something was wrong with that product. So how is your customer service? So I feel that there's restaurants out there this day and age. You go out to eat, and even like places where we shop a lot, like Waitrose, you notice that the container is getting bigger and bigger, and the quantity of the product is getting smaller and smaller, and the prices are getting higher and higher. And it's everywhere you go. Restaurants now, the average span to have a nice lunch, it's so expensive that it's not sustainable. It's not, you can't afford to keep putting the prices up because your rent is £1 million. So I think there's a lack of understanding what the consumer wants, and service is not what it used to be. It's not.
And why do you think we got to that? Do you think it's primarily cost pressures, or?
You mentioned something earlier as we were speaking. It's important to have a P&L. And it's important to you have your shareholders, your investors. But for me, when restaurants, as we mentioned, food is, I understand there's a cost and it's expensive to get the food in some locations. It takes time, but you got to have value for money at any restaurants. You have to have value for money, and the prices have gone. It's out of control. Prices that I've seen in London now, and it doesn't have to be that expensive in order for you to eat out. And there's a lot of restaurants that have realized that value for money is important. And I think we're going to change completely. I think we're going to go back to the basics, because people are not going to be able to afford to eat at those prices. Only 10% people will be able to afford those prices, not the regular customer.
Yeah, and you're already seeing, because of the way people work now in London, the Monday, Friday
completely
maybe disappeared for some people, and other people are very minuscule compared to what they were before. So you lost trading days as well. And then of course you have tourists, which are back, but it took a long time for tourism to come back to London.
Completely. The Chinese are they're going to Paris because of the VAT. You have people now are conscious, as you mentioned, is a perfect example. People are working 2 or 3 days. Look at the city, for example. They're coming on Tuesday, maybe Thursday. So business lunch, it's completely gone, because even the executives are not coming to London as often as they used to. So the market is completely different. And we know the busy season starts second week of September and goes all the way to Christmas. And if you're lucky enough, you continue momentum and you go January, February. But now, people are, it's expensive, and the service is not what it used to be. Why do I want to go back to that place? So I think in my clients that are extremely wealthy, they're looking for value for money.
Yeah,
they want to go to a place where they feel welcome. There's value for money. I can eat and get. Wow, I know places that do set courses. I had fish and chips, and I had a steak and frites with a salad the other day. It was $17.50. It was incredible. We had impeccable service. The service was incredible. The food was great. They had set menus for under £40, and those are the kind of places that I want to go to.
Yeah. What would your advice be if somebody listening in and thinking, yes, I know this is what we need to do. We need to get back to the act of hospitality. That's the secret ingredient that will make us stand out and give us competitive edge in the market. What would be the steps you would say that you have to go through as the owner operator, business leader?
I think that first and foremost, I mean, I don't think the consumer is there to pay your rent. So you can't be charging prices that are just ridiculous. First, I understand that there's prices for exactly wine lists and cocktails. It doesn't need to be that expensive. But I think first and foremost, I want to go to an environment where the staff is really well trained. You know what I mean? I want to go to a market where you open a wine list and there's value for money there. It's not all those expensive wines. I want to go to environments where there's specials that actually I can afford to pay. I think it needs to be for every for a young professional, for an older professional. I think prices, there's got to be value for money. But I think for me, where a place where you want to go to all the time, where my clients go all the time, is a place where the staff is knowledgeable. The staff is they understand, they know how to anticipate your needs. When things go wrong, your management knows how to react and recover what the mistake it was, and take off that main course off the bill if you made a mistake, if you made someone wait too long. And I think now people go to restaurants and they measure all this. But for me, it's essential the way you make people feel. People want to be in an environment where they feel that the waiter understands what is it, a business lunch? Is this a family celebration? I think staff needs to be well trained. They need to. It's not about upselling. It's about offering. It's about having. It's about recognizing the clientele. It's about knowing what they need and know when to step in to provide a efficient service. And now people want to be efficient. People want it to be consistent, and you have to have consistency in your business. Because if you're not consistent, one time I come in and I order 2 steaks and it takes 23 minutes, and one time I come in and it takes 45 minutes. People don't have the time. So I think it's talking about database and searching engines, all the technology that we have in our hands. It has helped the restaurant dramatically, but also is the human connection. I want my staff to. Michael walked in for the third time, and I want my manager to go to you. Hello, I noticed you've been here a couple of times. How are you, Michael? And you work nearby. You boom, and take your preferences and knowing what you want. So next time you come in, the sparkling bottle of water comes to the table, and you know that you don't have coffee with your meal when you're doing business. I think it's important, and I think it's important for sommeliers out there to go. Let me offer someone something different, but it's got a price point of 50 pounds, 40 pounds, 35 pounds. I can show you great wines for that price. And I think everybody now it's all about how much can I sell, and it shouldn't be that way.
Yeah, and I guess again, if you want to create that environment as an operator, it comes back to what Danny Meyer would also call taking care of your people first. Other people call it culture. And thereby becomes that you actually need to have a very different view on when, you start to make more money, because you make more money by being consistent, by guests come back again and again and again, not on increasing prices or just selling for the sake of selling, as you say, actually adding value to people's life.
It's adding. I think that's the most important, because we all grew up. Especially I grew up in America. Customer comes first, and what I learned from Danny Meyer is that customer does not come first. Your team comes first. More you train your team. I mean, first of all, I think that if you have a well-trained team, your clients, your consumer, they're very intelligent. They can feel, are they happy here? Are they engaging with each other? Are they it's okay to have fun and joke with each other, but do I feel welcome here? Yes, I do feel welcome here. But if you invest time and effort on your team, because first of all, as leaders, you have an obligation in order to, am I developing people? Yeah. Am I paying people what they're worth? So I think bottom line, I always look for the mentor that I never had at that time in age when I was 15, 16, 17 in New York City, learning the ropes, and I wish I had the mentor. And I think we have your podcast, for example, I think is incredible what you're doing. Young people can listen to this podcast and within an hour going to work and going, going, wow, I want to know more about this guy. I want to learn this. And I think technology has enhanced in a lot of ways, but people are completely shut out in their phones all the time. It's the headsets, it's the phone, they're not present. And I think present should be at the moment. What are we doing here today? What is our focus today? What are we going to accomplish today? Focus on a now. And I think that people are the young people now, they want the title, they want the house, they want the car, they want this, but they don't want to do the job. So what I learned is that you start at the lobby and you get to the penthouse, but it's not getting to the penthouse and having that incredible life. The journey is the important. Every step that you're making, everything that you're learning, from being a commie to a waiter. So I'm really glad that I learned my steps and going from one position to another position and be able to do what I do today. So it didn't happen, it happened. It was a lifetime of learning experience to get for me to be the man that I am today. And I'm still growing. I'm still learning every single day. I make mistakes all the time. I made a lot of mistakes as a leader when I opened my restaurant, Margot. But you learn from them and you focus on them. And how can I improve myself all the time?
That led very well to a question I wanted to ask you. So what has been, number one learning? There's probably many, as you already said, on the journey, but what's like the number one learning you've had in hospitality?
Oh, I love it. I think it's about empathy. To have empathy. I used to make my team read the book To Kill a Mockingbird. That book taught me not to judge. In a restaurant scenario, if someone walks in with a bad attitude or he's not necessarily polite, we judge quickly. So we don't know what that person is going through. We don't know that person just found out that he has cancer, that he has 3 kids and a wife, and he's got 6 months to live. So we often judge. So I think empathy is something that do not judge. If he's rude to me, I'm gonna be kinder and kinder to him. And my goal, I used to tell my staff, be kind and be kind and be kind. And I guarantee you, by the time he leaves, he's gonna apologize and he's gonna say thank you to everybody. 98% of the time, that's exactly what happened.
Yeah.
And resilience, I think for everybody out there, struggles. Life is not Disneyland. We came here to struggle. So it's through the struggle that we learn to have resilience. And it's through struggle that we learn we have the left side of the brain constantly telling us this and that. We have, look what has happened in the last 8 years in London, the wars and COVID and all that. It's difficult. I understand that. But it takes time to read, take time for yourself to learn about the Stoics and learn about how can I implement those things in my life? How can I learn how to meditate? I learn how to be grateful. So I think empathy has taught me a lot, and resilience. You need to be resilient. And human beings, we are resilient by nature.
And we'll put the book in the show notes, because I thought that was a very interesting leadership take on giving a book that is principle, not about leadership, but it's actually about how you actually not judging other human beings before you actually really try to understand them. Or then when they come into a restaurant environment. I love that take.
Thank you. I love the quote from that book is, "You never judge a human being until you walk in their shoes."
Yeah.
And I love that part.
Many years, I just put down here, need to reread that because I love books as well.
It's a great book. It's a great movie with Gregory Peck also. You can watch.
What about you touched on mentors there. You talked about the Stoics, what you can learn from them. I totally agree with that. I'm very much into my Stoic philosophy, and that came through somebody gave me the Daily Stoic from Ryan Holiday, and
I love Ryan.
Now I'm just become obsessive about it in a good way, I hope. And I think it's making him a better human. But who's your mentors besides? Where do you go and get your inspiration so you can keep on expanding yourself?
So from the Stoics, Marcus Aurelius and Seneca. I've learned a lot from him. Just how to cope under pressure. You know, how to be resilient under pressure, and also how, you know, we're not in control.
Yeah.
We're not in control. Seneca, we're not in control. Life is in control.
Yeah.
You know, how to be resilient, how to adaptability.
Yeah, how to flow with it.
How to flow with it, and how to become you know, life is pushing you towards you becoming a better person all the time. And I think it's important. And Daniel Boulud, I spent 6 years with him. I learned a lot from him. He was really inspiring to me. He's a great friend. Danny Meyer has impacted my life, you know, dramatically, because I know him really well. Setting the Table, his book we spoke about earlier. You know, it really, you know, hospitality, it's the tool for any business out there, and that will be the thing that will make you stand out. If you bring hospitality into your business, it will make you stand out. The way you approach, the way you engage, the way you're making your product better. I think I learned that from him, and I think that book, you know, that book has inspired so many people in this industry. And if you take those principles and the values, and I love what Danny Meyer, you know, he looks for people. He looks when he hires someone, humility. Kindness, curious intelligence.
Yeah.
You know, today, you know, it's funny because you ask so many amazing questions. You know, we forget the sense of getting up in the morning, you know, and I don't know everything. No. I need you to be curious. Don't be afraid to ask questions. I don't know this. It was the same thing, you know, I said to my staff, you make a mistake, raise your arm. I messed up. Yeah. Not a problem. Let's go and fix it, because as a leader, you always try and come up with solutions and how can I fix everything? And that's what, it's nothing wrong with those things. And I think the young generation needs to learn that. It's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to fail. You know, it's okay to have a business and it didn't go accordingly to plan, because, you know, something else is opening up for you in the future that's going to make you a better employer, a better leader.
In your conversation with Danny Meyer, which you know really well, that is your mentor, what is the one thing you can remember, like very clearly, a very vivid conversation where there was like a moment where, you know, you just have the penny fall, boom, I get it. Now I know what to do. Oh
my God! First of all, when I always loved him, and when I met him with his wife, I was so excited, you know, to meet this guy. And then when we became friends, I think, you know, Shake Shack and everything that he creates, I know that Danny Meyer, everything he does, it's about, how can we create a better world? How can I be a better leader? How can I share my wisdom with everybody I know? How can I touch someone and make someone feel special? That's what I learned from him, and the effort that he made every time I saw him. He took his time to hospitality towards me every time I saw him. It made me feel special.
And that's really interesting, because actually because you just said something there, somebody else said to me the other day about what hospitality is, actually seeing people when they're there.
That's it.
You're actually seeing them. And he was referring back to, he's never met Bill Clinton, but he's read something about Bill Clinton, and his superpower was that ability to see the person standing on that street, hooraying him or waving to him, and go over and have a conversation and straight away be in their shoes.
Yeah. I think that's so beautiful, you know, because we get so caught up in our days, and we get so caught up on so
the
plan and the meetings. And when you know, in a restaurant, you start at 6, 7 in the morning, and you have all your meetings throughout the day, and someone engages you to ask you a question, and you got to have your open door policy, because the young person, you know, is taking the time to ask you something, and if you shove them away,
courage.
You know, so the courage to come to you and ask that question. So I think this day and age, how often you're in London, especially, you open a door for someone, they don't even say thank you, they don't even acknowledge you and look you in the eyes. We're missing that. Yeah. Those little things are important, you know, to say thank you very much, to look someone in the eye, to hold the door for someone, to get up. You know, how often I take the tube, and tube is a perfect example of our society. Where are we that we cannot get up for an older woman? Where are we that we can all get up for a pregnant woman?
Yeah.
Where are we that we can all, at the door, the tube opens and everybody's in front of you. It's like, my body actually needs to come out of this door. So you need to create space for me to come out. So I find those things in our society today that's missing out. People are often with those big headsets. If someone's in crime, for example, someone want to steal something from them, they're not the awareness. Be aware where you are. That's what I learned from Danny Meyer. Self-awareness. That is the key. I learned that from him, and that was really important to me. How you're making people feel when you're around.
Yeah.
How what's your perception? So I think self-awareness is so important today more than ever.
Yeah, and I think one thing is that how you want to make them feel and how they perceive you make them feel.
That's it.
It's two different things. I can't even remember where I got that from Ari Weinzweig from the Singermans.
Yes.
I was reading about energy management, and how that actually can change the performance of your business from one moment to the other, because you're totally in control of that.
Yeah.
And you come, and that really leads to the next thing I want to ask you, because we're at the time is always, because since the first touch point I had, I could even feel it in the email you sent. Wow, here's high energy. I thought, which is great. I love that. And it's not like saying, I can't manage that. Because I'm actually very aware about energy management is one of the key things, both to manage yourself and others. But how do you actually find the energy to continue going through all the things you're in? There's been a lot of obstacles, I think. But
yeah.
But you're a very high energy person, and I guess that's also why you succeeded with some things. But also, how do you do that? How do you keep it going?
It's a great question. I've been like that all my life. I'm Leo, and I always had a lot of energy. But I think what keeps me going through the struggles, I have a great family structure, wonderful wife, and 3 kids. But it's my optimism. I believe that Mother Earth, is always pushing us to move. I have people in my life, like Martin Luther King Jr., keep moving. Keep going. It struggles. If you understand, I learned this from my mother too. The minute that you think that you're in control, that's when life is going to hit you. So I think I'm very spiritual. I love reading those books that we both like, and the wisdom that they had back in those days, the Romans and Stoics. I'm very optimistic, and I believe that once you realize that you're here to learn. Yeah. Once you realize as you get older that it's okay to make mistakes. Once you realize that my obligation, what have I learned today? I need to share what I know with the young people. I need to share my knowledge, as little as I know, as much as I know, with the world. So I try to I write things down a lot before I go to sleep. I look at things that I did well and the things that I didn't go well. In the morning when I wake up, the first thing I do with a cup of tea is gratitude. Being grateful for all the things that we have. And then, you set your intentions for how am I going to show up today? What's the Paulo that's going to show up today? Because this Paulo that is a really nice guy can be a pain in the bum. It can be very difficult. It can be very demanding. There's a lot of bad sides, but so I play football 3 times a week. I exercise a lot, and I try to hang out with people like yourself and Sarah that you learn so much from. And you people in passion. I think human beings, we're all have the ability to be the next Michael Jordan, to be the Einstein. And it's all about the mindset that we set ourselves in order to accomplish that. And I think we all have that. And we forgot that. Society has told us that we have to have that brand new chic car and the new house and the perfect marriage and the perfect this. You got to get married, a man by a certain age. No, it's not that. Life, we all have a different circumstances, and you just do the best you can with what you have, and what you have today, be grateful, because a lot of people don't have that minimal amount that you have today. There's a lot of people struggling out there. So I'm just very fortunate.
I love the grateful, being grateful for things, because that's also a part of my things. Actually, reflecting in the day. I have a question in my book I open every night, and I said, "What do you learn today?"
That's it.
And sometimes it's three things. Sometimes I actually struggle with what I've learned, and then I just actually, funny enough, then it comes back to how was the intention you started the day, because
Yes.
are you open or are you close to the world?
That's
And
it.
probably the days I couldn't put something down or struggle is because I've probably been a bit closed and, a bit, grumpy and don't want to engage with the world. And that's where I find it really interesting. To feed your optimism, you actually have to do things. And that's what you're saying. You have rituals to keep optimism going, because there will be times in life where you're in a dark place where you need to work yourself out of it. But that's where the real learning is.
Exactly. And this is where I come to love podcasts, and I've listened to several episodes of yours, and I love it because
Thank you.
You pick the subject and you go, okay, I need a lift. And often I need a lift.
Yeah.
And often I go to podcasts to listen to that lift. I need someone or a book that inspired me. Sometimes you don't have the time to sit down and read a book because you had long days, but a podcast, it gets me right there. And I love quotes. I love quotes. For me, quotes really drives me.
Talk a bit more about that.
Yeah, I quotes are really important for me. It's just, I start the day and I always post on my stories, things that I've learned, things that I've really has touched me, and I think those are important. Those, I think, as life, is constantly changing. People, there's a lot of incredible people out there that have written so many great books and passages that keeps you going. Michael Jordan, for example, a guy that was, his resilience for relentless pursuit of excellence.
Yeah.
Got dropped off from his team, and life. Can you imagine being in his shoes, going, "Oh my God, am I good enough?" But he continued the pursuit, and he continued the pursuit, and became, the world, best basketball player. I met Pelé. Look at the struggles that Pelé played football with no shoes, and had his broken knee in his first World Cup. There's a lot of the struggles that people went through. Martin Luther King, as I mentioned earlier, instead of a protest, let's protest with love and kindness. And I think I think quotes are, I love them. That the Maya Angelou that I just mentioned earlier, people don't remember what you said, what you did, but they will remember how you make them feel.
Yeah, and I'm very much also love quotes. I see them as a mini university, I call them.
Yeah.
And I was actually writing about it the other day, and I was pulling together, because since, I can't remember, very early on in the podcast or in the weekly newsletter, we put out a quote. And that's just something I found that inspired me in a way. And there's so much depth in the quote. And you can start, if you then start, as you say, reflecting and writing down what you learned from that quote and apply that to a story in your own life, it becomes extremely powerful. And you don't have to read books. You can just read quotes. Because
that is so true. And you know what I love? I get so many messages on my LinkedIn and Instagram. I needed that today. Thank you.
Yeah,
I think, over the summer, I got a message from Natalie, who is doing extremely well in Dubai, and asked me and told me, "Look, Paulo, thank you for all the things that you did for me." And I quote starts my day. I just pick a quote and I go, okay, this is going to be my energy for the day.
Yeah, and if you don't like quotes, you can also get the Daily Stoic, where you can read. There's both quotes, but there's also a reflection of how to accept that life is not controllable. All the Stoic virtues in there. We could go on for many hours, and we're getting to the end. But you mentioned a couple of books, but is there one book you give out of 9 out of 10 times to people?
It's Danny Meyer, Setting the Table. That's my favorite book. Yeah. I think I've given that book to so many people, and the people that have read it and understood. It's so funny. I watched those guys that were my head waiters at Barbaloo, and now they're director of operations, and they're doing so well. And they understood that book from day one, and they follow. And it's a hard path. It's a hard path to move up and working hard, and you have to learn so many things. But the bottom line for me is that this industry is beautiful, it's rewarding, and growing and developing is part of who we are.
Can we find that act of hospitality in the industry again? Do you think?
There's no doubt. I'm very confident that we will, because I think people are noticing now how bad it is out there, and there's a great operators, there are great chefs out there that are noticing this and going, "Wow, we got to go back to the basics, and we have to go back to the basics." Because look, 25 years, 35 years, you couldn't properly eat in this country, and we became the best, one of the best European countries to come to dine. Best chefs in the world, best chefs, British chefs from all over the world are coming here. London is becoming a hub for hospitality, and we've lost a little bit of that, but I think there's no doubt in my mind that we'll get back to it.
Great. What is the one question you wished I asked you, Paulo? What would the question be, and what would you answer?
I think it's funny that it's funny that everything that we talked about. I think the question is, why is hospitality important? I think hospitality is a business strategy tool for every business, whether you own an art gallery or a retail shop, and just focus on your team. If you're building a football team, you're not going to focus on the fans. You're going to focus on the team that you hire, and you're going to focus on the structure and the training and how they're going to eat well and how they're going to perform. And it's focus on your team. And once you focus on your team and they feel valued, they feel welcome, they feel that they can grow with you, and they feel that they have a journey that they're learning. It's 50-50. You give, I always tell my team, you give me 50%, I give you 50%, and together we're 100. So I think hospitality, it's an incredible tool that every business leader should be using out there.
And it's also a tool I can use as an individual in this fragile world? I
think so. I think just you can use that as an individual, because it's the way you show up, the way you engage, the way, what's Paulo De Tarso, what's Michael's atmosphere today? How am I showing up to the world? Because you have the problems at home, you have the business problems, you have things, but you can't let those things affect you. And that's what we learned from the Stoics. Okay, I have all those things coming in, but today let me focus on the present moment. Is this bad on the present moment? The past is the past. What's happening there? What's happening today? The future is only going to be as good as you're acting today. So we're a society of the future. We're always focused what's next, what's coming, but no, the power of now, the power of God is here now.
Love that. What a beautiful place to end the conversation. Where can people connect with you if they want to know more about hospitality, more about the work you're doing, or just want to have a chat?
LinkedIn is something that I use often, and I have a lot of friends there, and I'm always sharing something there. Instagram, Paulo De Tarso 24 is my Instagram. My stories always have quotes. I got 2 or 3 or 4 coming up every day. I think it inspires me, and hopefully we inspire you too.
Great. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you so much for having me here. I love your show, and I think you're doing, you're making the world a better place with your podcast.
Thank you so much. I hope we planted a little bit of seed of making the world better through hospitality.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Mike. I appreciate it.